Hi, I'm Andrew Strome, and today I'm going to share with you a simple beginner's leatherworking project, but it's going to teach a lot of the basic. What we're going to be working on is this little pouch that has a button snap closure. I've sized it so that you can use it to hold business cards. You can also use it to put your change in, as an example, or you can just use it to carry things sort of compactly in your pocket. It begins life as a square of leather that's about 4.5 inches wide and about 8.5 inches long. On one end, I've simply used a plate to cut a radius for the top of the flap. This is a side plate, and what I've done is I've come down an equal distance, just sighting on top of my workpiece and repeatedly cut around it until I've cut the radius on this flap. And then I need to do the cutout here on the body of the pouch. To do that, I'm just going to use a mug. And then I'm simply going to use, this is a wood carving knife, but I'm simply going to use a knife and go very slowly until I've done that cutout. There we go. Next thing I have to do is glue the body of the pouch. So I'm just going to mark up from the end here. It's about 5 5/8. Give myself another mark at 5 5/8 so that I fold it evenly, and it also shows me where to apply the glue. And I'm just going to take some water-based contact cement. You can use rubber cement for this as well. I'm using water-based contact cement simply because it dries very quickly. We have to let the rubber cement set for a few minutes till it becomes tacky. Then we'll fold the two pieces together. So now that my glue has dried a bit, I'm just going to take, I have a wooden straight edge here, and I'm just going to trim about 1/16 of an inch off the edges. And I'm doing that so that I have a nice, clean, finished edge. And it helps eliminate the glue squeeze out. And with this particular leather, it doesn't burnish very well. It's a little on the supple side. So in order to get a nice, clean, finished edge, I just recut the edges. But it's important, if you're going to do that, to take that into account when you're sizing your piece initially. So now I'm going to take a pair of dividers and scribe my stitch line along one edge. I'm going to use my stitching chisel to punch through both layers of leather and perforate a row of stitching. I'm going to start with one prong overhanging this edge right here. So I'm in fact going to have a stitch right in there. That's where the row of stitching is going to start, is above this piece. And what that will do is help bind the two securely and give it a little extra reinforcement at that location where it's a little prone to, could be a weak point. I'm going to repeat the process along this edge. So I've got the project clamped in my pony here. I've locked the needles onto the thread, and I'm going to start with 2 back stitches. So most of this run of stitching is going to be done left-hand priority, so left-hand needle through the workpiece first. But to back stitch towards me 2 stitches, I'm going to stitch right-handed and then come back and finish it left-handed. So the thread has gone through 3 holes to give me the third hole, pardon me, to give me 2 back stitches. And I'm going to come back 1, right-hand needle, pull up. Oops, my thread's a little twisted through the loop. So there's 1 back stitch. There's a second one. And that just adds a little bit of reinforcement at that corner. This piece is so small that you really wouldn't put a rivet in there. And now I'm going to come back left-handed. So left needle. I'm just going to make sure that my threads are evened out. So down to the bottom of the hole. Make sure I haven't pierced the thread by giving it a little pull. There we go. And what I'm taking care to do too is not cross the threads over each other on the back stitch. It's just an aesthetic thing. It doesn't affect the strength at all. It just keeps everything looking nice and smart. And now I'm going to finish this run of stitching. Left needle going away from me. There it is. Now I'm going to stitch the other side in exactly the same way. So now I'm just going to take a knife and cut the thread as flush with the surface as I can, and just take a little dollop of glue and put it on the cut end just to hold it in place. And now it's on to installing the snap. To install the snap, I take the cap and roughly center it on the flap, and I just make a little mark so that I can see where it is. I'm going to take a ruler just to double check and make sure I'm centered, and I'm very close. And I was really sort of positioning it more based on aesthetic considerations. Of course, I don't want the cap to be too close to that front lip. So that's about right. Then I'm going to take my hole punch and punch a hole through. Insert the cap. And now I'm going to use this to mark where the hole is going to be on the second piece. And I'm just trying to line everything up so when the snap is engaged, it's all nice and even. And I'm going to press that down and make a mark. And you can see that's where the hole needs to be. So I'm going to take a piece of scrap leather. This is a really crucial step. Otherwise, there's a possibility you'll punch through the back of your pouch. Position my punch in place. Oops. A little bit more. There we go. And punch through. And now I can assemble my snap. I'm going to clean this edge up a little bit. I've got some fuzz there. I'm just going to take a little bit of light sandpaper and clean that up. Yeah, just give it a light sanding. First, I've got some 220 here, and then I've got some 400. So just to smarten these cut edges up, I'm just applying a little bit of beeswax. I'm going to take my slicker, give it a bit of a burnish, just to smarten those edges up a bit. That's probably as good as we're going to get without a lot more rubbing, but it's dealt with some of those stray fibers. And of course the leather will take on a bit of a patina as it gets used. So that concludes our project. Thanks very much for joining us. We hope you're inspired to give it a try, and we'll see you next time.